Afternoon, third grade champions. We are continuing our Magic Treehouse book by Mary Pope Osborne. And today, hope you have your book with you. I am beginning at chapter 5, Resistance. And I think you remember they're in the barn and they're trying to hide and getting ready to see what's happening. The chapter is Resistance. Jack was too terrified to speak. Annie slowly held up 2 fingers in a V is for victory sign. What is she doing? Jack thought wildly. We don't know who this guy is. The man glared at Annie for a moment. Then his craggy face broke into a smile, and he held up his fingers in a matching V. Oh man, thought Jack, did we really just find a member of the French resistance? Who are they, Gaston? A woman called from the barn doorway. Who are you? Gaston asked in a raspy voice. Jack stuttered, terrified. Jean and Ami, Annie said quickly. Annie's a good spy, Jack thought. He completely forgotten their French names. Really? Said the man. Are those your real names? Annie laughed. No, our real names are Jack and Annie. Oh, brother, Jack thought. She is a terrible spy. And what are Jack and Annie doing in our barn? Asked Gaston. We're hiding from the Nazis, Annie said. Well then, said Gaston, you are in the right place. For the moment, you are safe, children, said the woman, stepping forward. She wore a shawl around her shoulders and a kerchief over her dark hair. Hello, my dears. My name is Suzette, and this is my husband, Gaston. Nice to meet you, said Annie. Come with us back to our house, said Suzette. Jack and Annie climbed out from behind the hay bales and followed the French couple to the door of the barn. Before they left, Gaston blew out his lantern light. Silence, he ordered, until we get into the house. Gaston and Suzette led Jack and Annie through the dark to the front door of the small stone farmhouse. Once they were inside, Jack and Annie looked around the room. It had a low ceiling. Candles burned on a heavy wooden table. A fire flickered in a large fireplace. Suzette placed an iron bar over the front door, while Gaston closed the window shutters. Sit, children, said Suzette. We will have apple cider, and you will share our dinner. Jack and Annie sat at the table near the hearth. A pot hung over the fire. Jack relaxed a little as he smelled roasting potatoes, onions, and carrots. Gaston poured cider into mugs, and Suzette prepared 4 bowls of stew. Then the couple joined Jack and Annie at the table. The fire crackled as they all quietly sipped cider and ate their dinner. When they were finished, Gaston leaned back in his chair and lit a pipe. You know, he said, when the Nazis were here earlier, they were not looking for you. They weren't, said Annie. No, they were looking for 2 paratroopers who'd been spotted dropping into a field near here, said Gaston. Oh, then they were looking for us, said Jack. No. Gaston stopped and gave Jack a funny look. Unless you 2 could be those paratroopers. Yes, we could be, said Annie. But no, said Gaston. How could 2 children parachute into Normandy, and why? We're working with agents of the SOE, said Annie. But no, Gaston said again. Oh my, said Suzette. Are things so bad that children are being recruited as spies now? Well, not just any children, said Annie. We were asked because one of our best friends is an SOE agent. We have information that she is 3 miles east of Cannes. We're supposed to find her and get her out of France. Then you do not have far to go, said Gaston. We are only 4 miles northwest of Cannes. There is great danger, though, said Suzette. The city is surrounded by Nazi patrols. You will need the right papers. We have identity cards, said Annie. Good, said Gaston, standing up. Come with me. We will hide you here tonight and help you get on your way. in the morning. Thank you, said Jack, standing up with Annie. Thanks for the dinner, Annie said to Suzette. It is my pleasure to feed two brave children again, Suzette said. Why did she say again? Jack wondered. Come along, Gaston said, waving his arm. Jack and Annie followed him to a room off the kitchen. Gaston pulled aside a floor rug, revealing a trap door. He lifted the door, and then carrying a lantern, he led Jack and Annie down a staircase to a cellar. Hundreds of wine bottles sat in racks along the walls of the dank, musty room. Suzette will bring bedding, said Gaston, and you can keep the light with you. He placed the lantern on a long table and then started back up the steps. Without looking back, he raised his hand. Good night, he said. Thank you, called Jack and Annie. When Gaston was gone, Annie sat down at the table. Wow, they saved us, she said. For now, said Jack. I wonder what these little rubber blocks are for, said Annie. She picked up a small block from the table and held it to the lantern light. Look, it has the letter H on it. Jack walked over to her. On the table were dozens of small rubber blocks and several stacks of paper. And this one has the letter S, said Annie, holding up another block. Here's a D, said Jack. S and U. They're all letters. It must be a printing set. Check this out, said Annie. She picked up a piece of paper from one of the stacks on the table. She showed it to Jack. He read the print on the page aloud. Hope and courage. Freedom soon. Annie thumbed through more papers in the stack. They all say the same thing, she said. It's a bunch of flyers. Do you think Gaston and Suzette secretly passed them out? Here's your bedding, children, said Suzette, coming down the steps to the cellar. When she saw Annie holding one of the flyers, she stopped. Did you and Gaston print these? Annie asked. Suzette crossed the room and stood in the lantern light. No, we didn't, she said softly. Our sons did. Your sons? Asked Annie. Our brave twins, Tom and Theo, said Suzette. They are couriers for the French resistance. What are couriers? Asked Jack. Couriers travel on bicycles delivering messages from one resistance group to another, said Suzette. Tom and Theo also printed flyers to give people hope. On their courier routes, they sometimes posted them when no one was looking. Only one day, someone was looking. What happened? Asked Annie. 3 months ago, we received word that Tom and Theo were picked up in Paris by the Nazis, said Suzanne. So, they're in prison now? Asked Annie. Suzette took a deep breath. We do not know what has happened to them, she said. I'm sorry, said Annie. Are Tom and Theo children? They are young men, 22 years old, said Suzette. But they will always be our children. Are you and Gaston in the French resistance too? Asked Jack. Suzette nodded. Our job is to gather and send information. She turned away from them. But now, my job is to make your beds. We'll help, said Annie. She and Jack helped Suzette spread the threadbare blankets on the floor. I fear you will not be so comfortable, said Suzette, but at least you will be safe. That's all that matters, said Jack. Thank you, Suzette, said Annie, and she hugged the kind French woman. Try to sleep now, children, said Suzette. You will need all your strength tomorrow to find your friend. Then she climbed the stairs and closed the door to the cellar. That's so sad about their boy, said Annie. Yes, said Jack. He didn't know what else to say. He was amazed by the courage of Gaston and Suzette. Even after their sons were caught, the couple was willing to risk their lives to help others. So tomorrow we head to Cannes, said Annie. Jack nodded. Do you have Kathleen's message? Annie pulled the piece of paper from her pocket and read aloud. Come to me in the darkest time. A wand I need, and a magic rhyme. 3 miles east of Sir Kay's grave, cross a river to find a cave. Look for knights and small round cows, a crack in a rock beneath the boughs. So we figured out the first 4 lines, said Annie. We know Kathleen needs magic, which Teddy forgot to give us. Right, said Jack. And we know we have to go 3 miles east of a town named Kellen and then cross the river to find a cave. Right, said Annie. And then the weird part, she reread. Look for knights and small round cows. A crack in a rock beneath the boughs. Jack shook his head. His brain was getting foggy. Let's ask Gaston and Suzette in the morning if they have any ideas, he said. Good plan, said Annie. They pulled off their boots and lay down on the ragged blankets. We'll figure it all out tomorrow, Annie murmured. Yeah, right now. I'm way too tired, said Jack, closing his eyes. He was exhausted from traveling through time to Glastonbury, flying over the English Channel, parachuting into Normandy, running from planes, lying in a ditch, hiding in a barn, escaping Nazis, and making friends with people in the French Resistance, all between twilight and bedtime. We're going to stop there. On Monday, we'll begin with Chapter 6, The Hour of Battle, on page 64. Thank you so much, champions. I really appreciate you joining me this week, and I hope you have a great weekend. Take care.